Good morning, and you're welcome to Reality Check from the studios of Mass Communication University. Here we have intellectual discussion on how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected us, the lessons learned, and the opportunities discovered. Whether we like it or not, the situation is now part of us, and we have to see clearly in dealing with it. May Almighty God liberate us and keep us safe. Noted to be the first estate of the realm, the mass media have long been recognized as powerful forces shaping how we experience the world and ourselves. So one cannot discuss today's situations without mentioning the responsibilities and effort of the media in managing the effect of the pandemic in our society. And that will be the background for why our guest today is so important to Reality Check.
So we welcome Hajia Sani, VP Voice of Nigeria. She was born on the 1st of September in Sokoto State, northwest Nigeria, more than 5 decades ago, possessing rich global, cross-cultural, and multimedia perspective and knowledge gained from various challenging capacities, environments, and paradigms. Work experiences span governments, non-governmental organizations in several national and international public media and communication establishments. In her career profile, she internationally trained broadcaster, a digital and multimedia writer, editor, reporter, producer, presenter, a researcher with 30 years proven expertise. So you're welcome, man, to our program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
We want to start with your perspective on the current state of Nigerian media. What are the things you are satisfied with and what you are not? Let's start with that, man.
Thank you again for having me. I think that the Nigerian media, a lot has really been discussed over the years. But personally, from my own perception, I would say that the Nigerian media has really grown from where we started in the 50s to date. From the times of Iwegoyi to today's multifaceted platforms per agency, I think we have really grown. In today's reality, though, a lot more is expected of us, which were not traditionally our core areas of expertise. For instance, the advent of technology has virtually shifted the ground beneath us and left us scrambling to catch up. So I personally think that the Nigerian media has grown and will continue to grow. But in terms of its fiduciary responsibility as the watchdog of society and the shapers and movers of policy, I think that there's a lot more we could still do. I don't think that we have achieved, we got to the point where we can hit our chests with our palms and say we've done very well. But I think that there's a lot of room for growth. There's a lot of room for development. Therefore, in terms of being the watchdog of society, I think that we're still growing.
We're still building. Okay, looking at the global media practice during this time, is there anything you think is peculiar to the Nigerian mass media?
There are lots of things that are peculiar to the Nigerian mass media. Lots and lots of things that are peculiar. As is the case in every environment and as is the case in every profession, there are nuances that are specific to the culture, to the environment, to the people of any given society. And in the Nigerian environment, the Nigerian media is spurred by clamors in the society, or should I say, perceptions within certain circles to hone in on a story, and that may not necessarily be what's best for the entire country at any point in time. However, the Nigerian media is not sleeping. It's not a sleeping media. We don't have a docile media. We have a very active, very vibrant, very intuitive media environment. So that, I think, is peculiar to us. It's not the same with several other countries around the world, and I've been to a few of them. And therefore, we can grow in terms of how we narrate our stories, but ours is peculiar because we have more than 300 different ethnic groups to cater for. Our country is large, is extremely large. The terrain is not very easily navigated. We have shortfalls in terms of financing, in terms of technology, in terms of even our education system leaves us with some shortfall that makes it extremely difficult to practice media operations in our own environment. But be that as it may, the Nigerian media workers today have really, they've really done the best that they can given the environment that we operate in. So that's peculiar to us. It's not something that you find that traverses the entire globe. In Western countries, Europe, the United States, that's North America, South America, the media environment is slightly different. And even more so with media practice in East Asia. So we're not going to compare. We can only strive to extract the best from every environment and adapt and apply that to our own circumstance.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. Okay, Ma. Presently, we are in a digital world, and the social media has empowered individuals to push out what they like. Has this been a problem to our media and profession?
Absolutely, yes. And this is not peculiar to Nigeria, by the way. It's a global problem. The social media came on board at the time when so little was available in terms of monitoring and evaluation of content. And therefore, in Nigeria, we have only NBC, that's the National Broadcasting Commission, and we also have, of course, the Press Council. However, the rules of engagement that is applicable to those has somewhat become outdated as a result of technological shift. Therefore, by the time the social media became a hype across the country, the regulations had not caught up with the realities on ground. And so it made it very easy for just about everybody and anybody to put out anything and call it story or call it news or call it breaking or whatever. And that has impacted negatively on the society at large. People tend to believe the people that they know, that they trust. Therefore, it's easy for an influencer or somebody who calls himself to shift perception towards a particular platform or a particular ideology. And that may not necessarily be the reality in terms of facts and narratives. So at the end of the day, social media, yes, has its own values, no doubt. But I think that it's about time that we begin to see some form of regulation as to what is put out there in terms of social content. And when you think about it in reality, social media platforms are essentially supposed to be interactive, socializing platforms. Okay. But we virtually adopted them as platforms for information dissemination. Yeah. And therefore, things that are not necessarily even information or news have now found themselves on the platforms of social practitioners. And that essentially has pushed the boundaries of what is decent, what is right, what is those core ethical principles that the media are essentially required to practice have been somewhat blurred in the cacophony, more or less, of noises that are out there on social media. Nonetheless, I think that the traditional media have begun to catch up or playing catch up with the reality of social media platforms and what they can be used for. So we're seeing a shift of the ability of media agencies and media industry, of the media industry as a whole, to adapt and apply social media platforms for the purposes of information dissemination. And therefore, there's a very insignificant at the moment, but hopefully it should be significant in the not too distant future, perception movement. So people now prefer to go to traditional media platforms, social media platforms, to harness their own information or to get authentic news. And that, for me, is the right way to move at this time in our history.
Irma, you talked about social media regulation, and as a media professional, how do you think we can regulate social media news and dissemination on social media?
Well, it's a very long process. You have legal ramifications, you have constitutional ramifications that you have to take into cognizance. However, I'm certain that over the last couple of months, and indeed over the last year or so, the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Hajia Mohammed, has been speaking with different media stakeholders to get a consensus as to the style or the format of regulation that will be required for social media. Let's not let's not be in doubt at all. There must be some form of regulation for any kind of information dissemination paradigm. There must be regulation. Now, that regulation may be to enforce the ethics,
Okay.
or to enforce the principles of fair hearing. You understand? So those are the kinds of regulations we're talking about. Not to I wouldn't say not to stifle or not to bar the media from performing their statutory role. That cannot be done because there's a constitutional provision that allows for the dissemination of information and the freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Nonetheless, within the context of that constitutional law, there is also the constitutional requirement of responsibility. And that constitutional requirement of responsibility needs to be pushed to the forefront so people understand the implications of what they share, the implications of the stories that they write, not just on their immediate environment or on themselves, but also on the society at large and the country as a whole. It is for this reason that many of us in the industry today subscribe to the need for a regulation, some form of regulation. It does not necessarily mean stifling or barring the media or muscling the media, as has been said several times.
Yeah.
I think it is to ensure a fiduciary responsibility on the part of the media people and the people sharing information, that they know that there are consequences for things that they share or that they do that that constitute or become anathema to the smooth functioning of our country as a whole and societies in particular.
All right, thank you, Ma. You've been able to answer so many questions about media regulation and freedom of speech, because so many persons have been confusing media regulation with the government trying to take away the freedom of speech from Nigeria. Social media regulation, sorry, and the government trying to take away freedom of speech. And I think you just dealt perfectly well with that aspect. Moving on, Ma, can you say our media, broadcast and digital media, are still able to convey a sense of unity? of purpose, reaching large audience, or are messages lost in the noisy crowd of mass self-communication?
I think that you virtually answered that part of the question yourself.
Okay.
Messages are getting lost.
All right.
They're getting lost because everybody sees him or herself now as a communicator. Whereas in reality, communication is a much deeper paradigm than is given credit for. Take, for example, a medical doctor. I'm just going to use this analogy as an example. A medical doctor who is a surgeon goes into a theater to perform a surgery. If the surgery goes well, the patient heals, wakes up, and goes home. If he makes a mistake, one tiny mistake, that patient could die. Now, it's the same principle and the same analogy that applies to media practice.
Yeah.
Everybody cannot be a journalist. There are specifics. The journalist is like he plays the role of the surgeon in the theater. If you make a mistake in a story, you could kill someone, actually.
Yeah.
It's just not with a scalpel like the surgeon does. It's with your pen. With your pen, you can make or mar a human life.
Yeah.
And that is something that is fundamental to existence. We all, as a people, as a nation, need to understand just how very, very important the role of the journalist is. A journalist can make or mar people's lives. A journalist can kill a country. Not necessarily with a gun or with a scalpel, but it happens. Because if you write something that puts your country's existence at risk, you're killing your country. It's as simple as that. That's how seriously even journalists need to take their job. You understand? So for me, yes, a lot is being lost in the crowd of noises, how people see themselves as, oh, I'm a social media influencer, or I'm a social media connector. You're putting out things that have not been sifted through the pedigree of analysis. And therefore, the implications are that if there is an error or a misquote in that document that you have just put out, it stands the risk of setting this country on fire, so to speak. So we need to be very, very cautious, very, very clear about our role, about what we put out, about the veracity of what we put out, because we make Omar nations.
Ma, what do you think the media is contributing during these trying times? What can you tell us the responsibility of the media in this trying time?
By trying times, I want to principle we're talking about the COVID.
I mean, this COVID-19, yes,
Okay.
the pandemic.
COVID has really disrupted everything that we know from the way we used to know it. This is now the new normal. There is no more the old ways of doing things. If you meet someone now, if you yourself sit back and think about it, you meet someone today, the first instinct will not be to shake their hands, correct? It will be to say hi from a distance, maybe use the elbow greeting and all that, and or the feet greeting, because your legs are covered inside a shoe. So that is already it's not peculiar to just people on the streets. It affects everybody, and the media, the people who work in the media are also part of everybody. So the media has had to streamline its position. Before now, we have to physically go to every event, physically meet people, shake hands with them, physically interview them, make contact with them beyond just the official realm, socialize with them and all that, to create a sense of understanding and a direction through which your relationship will flow. Today, it's not the same. Now everybody's talking on the phone only. I mean, you're speaking to me from my house. I'm in my house. I'm working from home. Maybe when this program started, you may have noticed that my eyes kept flickering to something else on the side. I'm looking at another system that I'm using to work to see if there are new things coming in or things requiring my immediate attention. So it tells you that the world has shifted ways, and so has the media practice world. In essence, we have now a new normal, and that new normal has impacted greatly on the media. The good side of it is, yes, it is enabling us to also help push the propaganda of stay safe. And this is not just a propaganda, it's a propaganda that we must all adopt because we don't have a choice. Our lives depend on it. Stay safe, stay home if you must, and just generally take responsibility for your life. That is something, it's not just information, it's a propaganda that we need to sink down to the last person. My grandson was here a couple of days ago, and as soon as he entered the house, the first thing he was doing was rush to the bathroom to go wash his hands. That's a 3-year-old boy. And you can imagine, it is impacting on him because that's the practice he's seeing his parents engaging. It's a practice that all media, when I get to the office every week for whatever meeting, the first thing I do is to wash my hands before I even step into the premises. It's now the new normal. So in terms of how COVID is impacting, I think these are the positives because it enables us to keep a better hygiene. It has forced us to look inwards. It has forced us to to become more creative in how we operate. But I think there are negatives too. The entire media industry in Nigeria was not ready for the technological shift, was not prepared for it, did not have the resources for it. Therefore, the new normal of COVID has forced us into somewhat a backslide rather than a forward pushing slide because we do not have the necessary tools and equipment to be able to operate offline. That is a major problem, but it's also already being addressed. We had a webinar with the Minister of Information a couple of weeks ago, just to set the tone for how we're going to handle this moving forward. But what this means in essence is that COVID-19 is here to stay. We all have people that we know or that we related with that have passed, that have died, or who have people who have contracted the disease that we were close to. A very close brother friend of mine, the general manager of Intimate Katsina, was one of those not so lucky to have contracted this disease. But we thank Almighty Allah that he is now hale and healthy. He's been discharged. But it means, in other words, it could have been any one of us. So as best as we can, we who practice in the media profession, because of the nature of what we do, have no other choice now but to embrace technology, to embrace technical and technological innovations and platforms, and move forward with our profession. If you look at other countries, contemporaries in other countries of the world, they've been doing this for more than 10, 12 years. They've shifted base already. The New York Times now has a digital newsroom. The Times of the UK has a digital newsroom. Guardian UK has a digital newsroom. The Washington Post has a digital newsroom. So when you look at all of the people that you're in the same profession with, you see that they've already shifted base, and you are still just struggling to make a daily run of your own work. I think that it's not good enough. I think that we could do much better. And I think that the government has a very huge role to play in this regard. It's not just the people in the front lines are not just the medical people or the health workers. It's also the journalists who tell the story. So many journalists have become infected, including several that I know who work in my own agency. And they're also frontline people. It's not their fault that they're out there. They have to get the story out. They have to tell the news so that people can actually begin to take the necessary precautions. So everybody needs to come on board. The government, the non-governmental organizations, the private sector, everybody needs to come. Even you, the students, you need to come on board and work with us so that we can all collectively together find lasting solutions or lasting preventive measures in this COVID times.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I want to ask, do social media provide solace or grant for misinformation, dehumanization, and discrimination, as the case may be? And what could be done to prevent it? Do we notice that the social media encourages or that menace?
Encourages what? I didn't get that.
The misinformation, dehumanization, and discrimination against maybe people that have COVID-19, and the information that's being passed about the pandemic.
I actually don't think so. That is more a cultural or perception thing than a social media problem. I think it's very easy for a lot of people to dump every Malay or every problem on the doorsteps of the media. The reality of it is, as a people, we need to start checking ourselves. Nigeria, when people like us were born in the 60s, so we grew up with a perception that in Nigeria it's your brother's keeper, and that enforced the country's foreign policy, that Nigeria was Africa's big brother. So for us, I cannot understand why somebody will assume that because I'm a journalist, I'm telling the story of a particular group of people, that I am maligning or stigmatizing a group of people. I don't see how that is even, that it doesn't make sense, really. So it's not so much.
I'm actually talking about the social media now, not
yes,
the
social media is not like a space station. All right, the social media are people's accounts. All right, there's no social media that doesn't have people behind it.
Definitely.
All right, so you need to look beyond the platform and look at the people who work behind the platform. I think it's the perceptions of the people who work behind the platforms that gets put out there, and that's a fact. There are so many social media platforms in the world today. You have Pinterest, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have so many of them. And many of them are not even active in Nigeria. In Nigeria, I think the most active is Facebook and WhatsApp and Twitter and Instagram. So if you take this 4, or maybe you add YouTube, if you take this 5 as your template, you get to find that it's people who are running these things. It's people, these are people's accounts. And it's one of the reasons why when we had a media roundtable with Facebook officers, global Facebook officers, a couple of years ago during the International Press Institute's meeting in Nigeria, that Nigeria hosted, we were very clear to them that it's not that Nigeria does not like to collaborate with international media platforms, but when you have a platform that you're not really regulating, and people bring hate speech and all manner of stigmatization materials or content and put it on your platform, and you do nothing but enabling such perceptions to pervade the society. So we put it to them that yes, the owners of these accounts are Nigerians, but the ownership of the platform is yours. And since Nigeria does not control the platform, and we can only control the people to a certain extent because of the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech clauses in our constitution, the onus rests on you, the owner of the platform, to put a stop to some of these things. If somebody is putting hate speech on your platform, you should be able to jettison it. You should be able to halt it. The same way, if somebody is sharing stigma content on your platform, you should be able to do something about it because the platform belongs to you. And when you established your platform, you had rules and regulations that people may not necessarily abide by when they come to open their accounts on your platform. So some of these things are actually not so much nation or policy issues. They are more individual issues. If you, Ashraf, decides to put a content that is stigmatizing people on your social media platform, you don't blame that on the country or the society. You blame that on Ashraf.
Yeah.
And that's the point that we're trying to make, that people need to take responsibility. People need to be able to account for the things that they share and the things that they put on their platforms. I have social media platforms that are my own personal account, and I have the one of my office, which I'm also responsible for. You will not find any such things on my personal platform or on my agency's platform. Why? Because I've taken responsibility for it. These are the issues that we as journalists, as students, as policymakers need to keep stressing. The Nigerian person, the person who is born and bred in this country, who is a part and parcel of this country's population, needs to understand that everything he shares is not just information that you want as to hype something or to make jest or whatever. It has implications. There are cascading ramifications to everything that we put out there. And people need to understand that, and they need to take responsibility for it. So social media platforms, yes, a lot is being shared there that should not be shared. But these are not policy issues. These are not legal issues. These are personal issues. And people need to understand that they need to take responsibility for those things that they share on their personal platforms.
Oh, thank you very much, Ma. That is much detail. We need to understand the impact and the consequences of what we share online, and we have to take responsibilities for what we put on our social media platform. Well, but moving ahead, do you think our media is enhancing the flexibility and ubiquity of media technologies to increase the publicity adherence to the safety measures suggested by Global Health Organization to combat the spread of COVID-19?
Yeah, I think we have the capability.
Okay.
Nigeria is one of the most blessed countries in the world, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of, if not the most blessed, in terms of human resource and the capacity of our human resource. We have so many Nigerians who are so good in what they do. And it is a fact that is globally recognized. It's not just about our own perceptions. It's about factual figures. These are statistically generated information that Nigerians, wherever we may find ourselves, in whatever capacity, we excel. So the adaptation of technologies to curb COVID-19 or to limit or to, should I say, flatten the curve of COVID-19 in our own society is something that's achievable. But it can only be achieved when we ourselves take responsibility. I keep using that sentence because it is the only way to say what we need to say from COVID-19. There's only money to be expended. You understand? Economies have crumbled globally. It's not a joke, it's a reality. We're being told every day that we should limit our expenditure, cut down seriously so that we can save some money. To just spend on the essentials, your food, your medicals, and stuff like that. Help people who are less fortunate than yourself. Why? Because the economies of the world, all economies are crumbling. The US, Europe, Canada, everybody is shouting. China just announced day before yesterday that the economy is going to crumble. That they cannot make the GDP that they thought they were going to be able to make for 2020 and 2021. They've even extended it by 1 year because of COVID-19. And people are saying it doesn't exist. So technology-wise, yes, the technologies are there. We have technological giants in Nigeria that can transform anything to anything. Are we exploiting them? Do we even believe them? Why are we not exploiting them? Because we don't even believe them. You remember at the start of COVID in March this year, several of our governors came out to say they didn't think It was they didn't even adopt the, enforce the lockdown that the federal government initiated.
Yeah.
Several of our governors didn't do it. Some governors came out and said their countries were the only ones mentioned in the Bible, and therefore they could not, their state, was the only one mentioned in the Bible, and therefore they could not get COVID. Today, that state, even the chief executive of that state is in trouble. He has COVID. And these are realities. And yet people are saying it doesn't exist. People go out, mingle anyhow, hold parties. Please. Nobody has a spare life. No. So while we are trying to adopt technology to solve some of these problems, we need to understand that the first line of defense is each and every one of us. You need to take responsibility for your life and the life of your family members, and therefore stay safe. If we don't do that, no amount of technology can help us. That's the truth. Yes, our medical facilities were below par at the time COVID started or became endemic in Nigeria.
Yes.
But it's still a pandemic that is a global problem. Even the United States does not have today the quantum of medical requirements it needs to take care of all of its citizens. Yeah. They don't have it. Europe, the entire countries of Europe, they don't have it. The entire countries of Asia, they don't have it. Everybody has his or her own peculiar problem. Nigeria's own is peculiar in the sense that for so long, we paid very little attention to our medical sciences. Our hospitals became, just visitation offices where you go and collect paracetamol. Yeah. Our own pharmacies, pharmaceutical industry became where they were, blending all manner of irrelevancies and calling them paracetamol. There were no checks and balances. People did what they liked in the name of making money. Today, that discrepancy on our part as a people, and even though the media kept talking about these things, very little attention was paid until sometime in 2016, 2017, when government began to take a look at what was happening in the medical sector, in the medical industry as a whole, the pharmaceuticals, the hospitals, even the resources paid to the medical workers. These are the issues. So we left something undone for so long. Now it has come to, bite us on the foot because we didn't prepare ourselves for a pandemic like this. Today, we've learned better. I'm sure that the government will continue to do what it needs to do. I'm certain that each and every one of us in the media industry will continue to put all our weight agenda to ensure that we actually have the resources, the human resources and the capability to take care of our people. Nigeria's 200 million plus population is a huge potential, massive potential. We cannot afford to lose anyone anymore. It's not economically wise, it's not socially wise, it's not politically wise. There's no sector used to analyze it that it is wise for Nigeria to lose people, because this is one of our greatest strengths, our human resource. Therefore, I think that even with all the technologies that we have, if we do not school our people and get them to the same reasoning that is required to step or flatten the curve of COVID-19, we will not be helping ourselves or our nation. So for me, technology can play a huge role. Yes, so many tools have come out there that people can use to check and all that. But we need to increase our testing capacity, and that is already being done. And we are hoping that they can step up that, to a higher degree, so that more and more people can be tested and more people can. But all of these technologies we are talking about, unless and until you and I and all our relatives and all our societies and all our communities and all our traditional leaders believe and accept that COVID-19 is real and take the necessary precautions, we will not get anywhere.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, let me take it from when you mentioned that the government are not giving the medical and our scientists proper attention. There was this time that they said they are bringing Chinese to manage the condition for us, and there were cries that we have scientists in Nigeria, doctors that can actually help out and find cure or preventives or a vaccine to COVID-19. And I'm coming to the media now. Is it that the media is not doing enough to link our scientists with the government? That's why we are having this gap. The government is not developing, and the scientists have the power, and they are not getting their words down to the government so that they can be empowered. Is there is media contributing to this problem?
Okay, I think there are two questions here, or two issues you've raised. One is the import of expertise to assist in the prevention of COVID. And the other is whether we're doing enough to propel local expertise. And I think I'm going to take the last one first. I think that there is no other sector in this country that has done so much for local expertise as there is the media. I do not think that there is any sector that has done as much for local expertise as the media. Why? Because we tell the story every day. I don't know how many media platforms that you follow, and I don't know how many majority of Nigeria, but there's a plethora of media platforms in Nigeria. A plethora. It's so huge, we've stopped counting. All right? And we're not talking of just traditional media, radio, television, newspapers. No, we're talking of digital platforms, web media. It's everywhere. Go to YouTube and just search Nigerian media platforms. You will see more than 1,000 in just one check. And that's not all of them. Those are the ones that are active at that time. Yeah. So we have a responsibility as media in Nigeria to propel Nigeria. And that's what we do. And how do you propel Nigeria without propelling the expertise that Nigeria has to offer? There's no, it's like saying you're eating rice, but not in a plate. Where do you put the rice? Because the moment you mix it on sand, it's no longer rice. Yeah. It's the same thing. So for us in the media, we don't have a choice. That's our job, to tell the Nigerian story. And the Nigerian story includes telling the stories of each and every person who has something of value to say. So if you invent something today, the first thing you do is to call a press conference. Before you even probably go to NAFDAC for registration, you've called a press conference. Yeah. Who will be there? The media. And then that story gets told. You don't have to believe it, but a number of people will believe that invention. Are you getting my point? So bottom line, it's not that we're not doing enough to propel local expertise. I think it's also that Nigerians have allowed themselves to take on this perception that if it is not foreign, it is not good enough. It's an age-long perception that is still haunting us to date. If somebody has a headache and you ask him to go to a hospital, he'll probably first run to Nizamiye Hospital, say one of our political leaders. Just yesterday, I was having a conversation with my twin sister, and we were praising a local hospital for their expertise, giving some information that came to our that's Nisa Hospital, or run by Nigerians. But how many Nigerians actually bother to say, okay, who are the owners of this place when they are visiting a hospital? That's just one example. When we make tomato juice in Nigeria, made in Nigeria tomato juice, which, by the way, still tastes better than any imported tomato juice, which may have stayed on the shelf for more than 6 months before it gets to Nigeria, right? But Nigerians will go and scramble to buy the one made in Turkey or made in Germany, right? Yeah. They will leave the one made in Aba or the one made in Kazina. Why? Because it's better. Yeah?
That are even better than the imported.
Yes, ours tastes better, by the way. The vitamin C is the right acidity, and all that, but we're not interested. Why? It's made in Nigeria. Okay? We make Cadbury's in Nigeria. When people go to buy a beverage for their children, they will go and be looking for the one that is made from abroad. Milo, our own Milo. We make it here. It's still the best. Globally recognized as the best Milo beverage. Yet, Nigerians are looking for the one that is made from abroad. So these are not issues of, like I said at the beginning of our conversation here, they are issues of perception. They are cultural issues. These are issues of, orientation. People have a certain perception, and that perception drives them towards a particular realm. It's not necessarily the fact. But those of us who are lucky enough to have the facts in our hands and share those facts as often as we can, we know better. We certainly know better. Pounded yam is made in Nigeria. How many people go to eat pounded yam in local bukateria? They want the one that they will pound with the yam pounder. I prefer the one that is pound inside a mortar and with the pestle. There's something natural about that gives it a flavor that you don't get from any other thing. These are all perceptions. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of reorientation that we need to do as a people. And it's not just a media task. It's the task of each and every one of us. We all come from big families. Every one of us is related to somebody in this town or in that town and all that. If we keep spreading the right perception, we will get to the point where everybody understands that that right perception is better for our nation. But we need to put our nation first. However bad our nation is, it's the only nation that belongs to us. Yes, the second part, importing experts. All right? Look, globally, this is a global problem. It's not a Nigerian problem. COVID-19 is not a Nigerian problem. It's not even an African problem. In fact, Africa has the least figures of all the continents. We have just about 360-something thousand people in total are confirmed with COVID. The global figure is over 10 million. So it's not a Nigerian problem. Those with higher and more expansive confirmation cases, confirmed cases, are probably in a better position to share their experiences with us. We need to be able to open our minds to learn from other people's experiences. In life, you don't grow if you stick yourself in one corner and say, I'm the only one who knows it. You grow by sharing experiences, by learning from other people. The expertise we called for from China is not just because China is the first country to have it. It's because they were able to curb it, flatten the curve for a while, even though they had a resurgence. The reality of it is they were the first to be able to flatten the curve. More importantly, China has a lot of investments in Nigeria, and they were the only ones who offered immediately. You see, you have to know who your friends are. Your friends are not your friends just because they can scoop oil from your backyard. Your friends are your friends who stand by you in times of need and when the going gets tough. China stood by Nigeria. So it calls to reason that Nigeria would openly say, okay, if you have any expertise that you'd like to share with us, please do. And they offered, they came, they brought their expertise. They brought assistance to Nigeria. How many other countries have you heard that has brought assistance to Nigeria? It was long after China arrived here with their PPEs and all whatnots that other countries now started leveraging because they saw, for them, it's all about economics. So for every country that is relating with Nigeria, it's all about economics. Let's not be fool ourselves about it. That's a fact. Nobody wants to relate with you unless they are gaining something from you. Why? Nigeria is one of the most endowed countries in the world. We have everything. Solid minerals, oil, gas, everything. Agriculture, human resource, we have everything. So any country that is not relating with you does not know how to harness its own economic value. So all of them are running to relate with Nigeria. But China has put its foot where its mouth is. They've moved into what they are saying. Eh? We had Ajaokuta Steel for how many years? You remember? It's not until 2017 that Ajaokuta Steel started coming back on. Imagine if we had Ajaokuta Steel invested in by Canada, say for example, in the 80s or 90s. Will we have the quantum of people we have that are jobless today? Absolutely not. But they were not willing to invest because it's not economically viable for their own economies. So China now came and is investing. Why should we not embrace China? If they like, let them bring everything that they have that is curing COVID in their country and bring it to Nigeria. We will still test it. That's the one thing I'm solid about. Nigeria does not take everything and just swallow. We take it, we test it. Let them bring whatever they have. Hey, if Madagascar said they had a drink that they had made and they had used it to cure COVID, 3 months after that, we still have people. Is it as efficacious as they claim? We have to be sure, because the lives of our own people is what matters to us the most. That's our biggest resource, like I said before, the lives of Nigerians. So government is checking and rechecking everybody. Whatever you want to bring, come ahead, bring it. We will take, we will check it and check it again and check it again until we are certain that it does not constitute a risk to the lives of Nigerians. Then we will put it out for public use. But until then, we have to continue to check. But we cannot close our borders to anybody who offers us expertise or help, because this is not a Nigerian issue. It's a global issue. And we will take help from wherever we get it.
Okay, as we wrap up the show, I was asking if you have any advice for young people and young ladies. What do you think they should focus on for society change and development?
Training. That's the be all and end all of human existence in the future. They should become experts in training and should be well trained themselves in technological lines. Because whether we like it or not, technology has shifted everything that we know and will continue to shift everything that we know. So if you're going to be relevant in the future of work, in any environment globally, ladies, let's get knowledge. Very deep knowledge and very usable and useful knowledge. It's very, very critical. Day before yesterday, my twin and I again were doing some research, and we found that the whole world, if you don't have computer skills, you don't have technological skills, you don't have creative skills, you are finished. In the future world that we are going to. Now what you're just doing, this knowledge that you have in Nile University, your media department, is fantastic knowledge. You need to spread that, tell all the other departments that they need to adapt some form of technological backlay to every knowledge that they're sharing or that they're acquiring. Because without that, they'll be left behind. The future is technology, the future is going green. So these are things that people should begin to think about. The climate change is not going anywhere, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. And if we don't begin to take or acquire skills and knowledge that we can use to stem climate change, to rework issues of interaction and all that, we will be left behind. I think that ladies in particular have not let me down. I'm very proud of women in Nigeria. I'm very, very, very happy with what we're doing. We're making strides where people least expect it. So I encourage them to set for themselves serious standards, not minimum standards. It has to be the maximum standard, so that they can attain skills that are uncommon, and then they can remain relevant and be beacons for young generations to come. But it also applies to you men, because we don't want to leave you behind. But sorry, women we have passed you guys. There's no doubt about it. But we'll continue to carry you along, as you know. That's our style. Women carry men along. We'll keep carrying you guys along.
Problem.
But the reality of it is
Problem.
women are breaking barriers, and they are making very serious marks all around the world. And I'm proud of them.
Right.
Well, we can't let you go without knowing your secret to success in the media. We want to know, I want you to share with us how your undergraduate life was like that have inspired you to have propelled to this height, uh, which will inspire some of them.
Ah, undergraduate years. Well, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Oh, by the way, I didn't read journalism or mass
Oh,
communication.
wow.
I read performing arts in
Wow.
my undergraduate days. So it was a very, 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 very intense program. And I cannot underline and underscore the very, very, very enough. It's a training that takes away from you sleep for several years. So you become insomniac thereafter. Most of us are. Um, it was a very tedious course, a very intense course. You have to just, if you have not set the appropriate standards for yourself, you're not likely going to pass performing arts as a course. So you had to raise the bar beyond scale, because we knew from the kind of family we come from, everybody is a target setter. So we had to set a new target, set a new bar. And so we had to work extra hard. My twin and I went to the same university, studied the same course. So we've been together all of our lives. So it's like we kept pushing ourselves. You need to push yourselves. At any point in time, whatever you're going to do, you have to set a standard that's above par, and you have to make sure that you push yourself to meet that standard and possibly even excel it. And that's really the secret to any success. It's not just mine. It's a secret to almost all successes. You cannot give up. You can fall several times. You must never give up. So that can-do spirit, you need to adopt it. And more importantly, you need to be clear what you want to achieve. You have to set for yourself your own timelines. At this age, this is what I want to have done. At this stage, this is what I want to have achieved, and all that. If you don't set for yourself your own timeline and your own targets, it's very, very unlikely that anybody is going to set it for you. So you'll be left behind while everybody else is succeeding. So you have to be clear about what you want to achieve and how you want to achieve it and when you want to achieve it. If you don't set those timelines and those targets, you're on your own. And more importantly, I think you have to be really fastidious, not just in terms of your knowledge or skills acquisition, but in terms of your faith in God and in yourself. Nobody gives anybody a ladder to climb. You have to make your ladder. You have to be the carpenter that makes the ladder. You have to be the welder that solders it together. You have to be the engineer that measures its weight, that enables it to stand properly, that fits it to the right building, the right side of the building. You have to be the architect that ensures that the construction that you're going to do climbing on that ladder, outlives even you yourself who is making the ladder. These are targets that you set for yourself. These are challenges that you put to yourself to be able to attain any kind of success. I really don't see myself as a very, very successful person, but I know that I cannot carry last. Like Lagos people will say, Lagos, no, they carry last. I will not carry last if you have to measure in terms of achievements in the media industry. I will not carry last, and I don't believe in carrying last. In fact, if I'm not among the first three, I'll flog myself, So essentially, you have to really believe in yourself, and you have to keep praying to God to make you steadfast. Because if you lose your faith in your God, the likelihood is that you lose your faith in yourself.
Yes,
And once you've derailed like that, coming back is not easy. It's not that you should give up, but it will take you longer to come back than it would ordinarily take you if you had been firm in your beliefs. So believe in yourself, trust in God, work extremely hard. Don't bother about sleep. You will eventually sleep someday, and get the minimum required number of hours to sleep. But sleep is the least of your problem. You have all the time to sleep when you cross 60. But before you are 60, invest in yourself. Don't wait to be invested in. Invest in yourself. Learn a new thing every day. Nobody dies from knowledge, and you can't get lost with knowledge. Once you know what you're doing, you study a lot, you expand your horizon, you don't have to be traveling, junketing all over the place. The COVID has even made sure that cannot happen anymore. So the important thing is read and read and read. It is so important to keep reading, keep seeking knowledge. Find as much as you can. Don't think any knowledge is wasted. Oh no, I don't need this. Need it. At any point in time, you pick up something, read it, need it. Keep that, store that knowledge in yourself, because you do not know when it will become useful. I read Performing Arts, by the way, and then today, I'm a full-fledged 30 years and counting journalist. How did I get there? It's dedication, it's impacting yourself, enforcing yourself, and trusting in God that you will achieve what no one else assumes you will achieve. I think that essentially is the key to success in any sector, in any case. I was a science student, so don't mind me.
Wow. You're welcome. Um, Before we leave, we don't know whether you have any program in store for empowering young women in communication, since you are a leader there.
Yes, hopefully before I retire, which is just a few years away, I plan to start up an academy for young ladies. Essentially, is to propel technology and introduce young women into technology. Those who are keenly interested in artificial intelligence, in virtual reality and all that. Because for me, really, those are skills that you can't go wrong with in the near future. We won't be here forever. I don't see it becoming the in thing in my lifetime or in my work lifetime. But it will certainly be the in thing in the lifetimes of the younger generation. So we need to key them into it, introduce them to it, expose them to it, let them understand that just as there are things that they should be concerned about, there are also things that they should embrace and work with to adapt technology to whatever scale that they want to adapt it to. And it's not just going to be peculiar to people in the media industry or young people in the media industry. I'm hoping that, inshallah, it will be something that we open to people in virtually any sector of human endeavor, any sector whatsoever, be it engineering, medicine, law, even administration. We should be able to move from one realm to another in terms of technological adaptation. I don't think that there's going to be any work life in the next 30 years that will not require technological input. I don't see it happening. So we need to start looking beyond right now and start planning for the next 10, 20, 30 years. That's the only way that we can actually set a new pace. For me, that academy is very close to my chest. I'm pulling everything that I can to start it off. It will be an academy that works with young people in particular. I'm talking of people in maybe SS1 to SS3, not graduates and stuff. I'm talking of younger generation of people, because 30 years from now, they will be the ones employing and disseminating knowledge in that regard. So we need to equip them on time. We need to sharpen their skills and broaden their minds to adapt technological skills that would impact positively on our economy and on our country. But most importantly, I think that in the next few years, maybe in the next 2 years or so, we should be able to start off some kind of mentoring scheme for media women in the media. Because we've realized that unlike virtually like a lot of other professions, the media now has
You have a plan for secondary school girls, but we are not secondary school. It is a university.
Yeah.
But I think you
And
mentioned also that you are planning for media mentorship. Mentoring. Okay. So which one is applicable to the university now? Or what plan do you have for them?
the university community, I think, is going to be playing a key role in it. So there's no way you would not be engaged in it somehow. As for the academy and the shape of the academy, we're looking at starting them young. That's why we decided that it should be secondary school people. But forget not that there will be people who will graduate from the universities or who will still be in the universities who will serve as interns in that academy. All right.
Mm.
So there's always room for you there. The mentorship one is essentially more for the women folk in the industry. You know, for a very long time, the media industry was seen as an exclusive preserve of the male gender. And that didn't serve the industry over the years. It was a serious battle for women to step into the realm of the media industry and take their role. Today, I think we constitute the majority in terms of numbers. That's women. We've carried the men along, of course, but we're looking at women, mentoring women to actually start off their own media industry. Not just work in media industry, is to start theirs off. We have a number of them that have started off already. You must have heard of Hajia Ahmed, you know, and her own media industry. So we have several other women like that who are owning their own. There's Victoria Ibanga, she has set up her own online web. So all of these people are all, they're all working to actualize that our plan to mentor women, to mentor younger generations into media practice. But essentially, our focus will be on the women because that's where we've had the largest drawback in the history of the media. So we need for the women folk to start off their own. If we own our own media industry, it's easier for us, it's easier for the families, because that means we work at our own pace. We won't leave our children young at home with nobody to care for them. We'll be able to actually bring our children up in a better way and all that. Technology is also helping. That's why we are starting off with the academy, because with technological skills, you can actually work from anywhere. It doesn't matter even if you're working for someone. You should be able to do your work efficiently and effectively from wherever. So that's why we put this two-pronged stool on the table. But these are the things that we need to quickly do and get them done before the end of the next 10 years, so that at least we have prepared the next generation of media workers for put them in a better stead than we were when we started.
All right. Thank you so very much, Ma, for your time and for being part of our show today. We are grateful and we're really we've been enlightened about so many things having you on our show today. Obviously, thank you very much for making our time to be part of this show today. We are grateful from the Department of Mass Communication, Nigerian University, Abuja. We appreciate you. And this is where we wrap up the show for today. Till we come your way again for another edition of Reality Check here at Nigerian University Studios, Mass Communication Department. We say stay cool, stay safe, and be good. We love you.